Well, ahoy there, mateys. We are going to do a very quick, hopefully, video on for the first video of 1.6 extension. So we're actually into chapter 2. So we're moving our fractions into chapter 2. Now, what we're going to have to do for 1.6 and the fraction stuff is we're going to have to be able to compare fractions, and we're going to have to be able to convert fractions into equivalent fractions. That's a lot of fractions. So if I want to compare 3/4 and 2/3, one way to do that is to turn them into equal size pieces. Now, the way you do that with fractions is you get a common denominator. So what we want to do is we want to look for the least common multiple between 4 and 3. So what is the least common multiple between 3 and 4? And that is 12. So I'm going to turn them both into 12s. In order to compare fractions or add or subtract fractions, we need to have what are called common denominators. The bottom number has to be the same. So I can turn both of these into 12 because that is a least common multiple for 3 and 4. So what do I have to do to 4 to turn it into a 12? Well, I got to multiply it by 3. So I'm going to do 4 times 3. But then the trick is I got to multiply that numerator by 3. So I'm multiplying the top and the bottom by 3, and that gives me 9/12. Now I can show you that visually. What I'm basically doing is turning this 3/4 into 12. So I'm dividing it into 3. And if you look at the picture, you'll see there, oh, well, there are 9/12. So 3/4 is equivalent to 9/12. So 2/3, what do I have to do to the 3 to get a 12? I got to multiply by 4. So I'm going to multiply by 4 on the bottom. I also have to multiply the numerator by 4. And that gives me 8/12, which again, I can visually show you by dividing up this top one here into 4 extra parts. Oops, pretend those are all equal. And notice that is now 8/12. And now it's easy to see which one's bigger. So this one has 9/12 that are shaded in. That's the same as 3/4. And this one has 8/12 that are shaded in. That's the same as 2/3. So when you want to compare fractions, what you want to do is get a common denominator. You got to make the bottom number the same. And you do that by figuring out, well, what number do I need to get that number to be the common denominator? And then you also have to remember, if I multiply the bottom by something, I got to multiply the top by the same number. All right. And then we're going to do one more thing for this video. Let me pause this puppy. Okay, if we're given a problem like this and we need to compare 11/16 and 17/24, the way you want to do that is to get a common denominator. So now with the last one, you could have noticed, oh, well, if you multiply the denominators together, that'll give you a common denominator. And that's true. So if I do 16 times 24, so if I multiply this one here by 24 over 24, and then this one over here by 16 over 16, that would work. That would give me a common denominator. But that number is going to be big. And that's why you want to use the least common denominator. We want to use the least common multiple to figure that out. So if I list the multiples of 16, and hopefully you remember this from what we just did in the last chapter there. So if I multiply 16 by 3, so like 16 times 2 is 32, times 3 is 48. If I list the multiples of 16, and I list the multiples of 24, so 24 times 2 is 48. These both go into 48. So rather than using 16 times 24 as a common denominator, because that's a big number, we can just use 48. Okay. So what do I have to do to 16 to get 48? So I got to multiply that by 3. So my denominator that I want to use is 48 for each of these. So I just got to figure out how to turn them into 48s. So the 16 I got to multiply by 3 to get 48. So then what do I have to do to that numerator? I also have to multiply by 3. So that gives me 33/48. That's the same as 11/16. So 33/48 is equivalent to 11/16. What do I have to do to the 24 to get 48? I got to multiply by 2. So I'll multiply that by 2. So what do I have to do to the numerator? Yes, multiply it by 2. So anything you do to the bottom, you got to do to the top. Because what we're really doing is we're multiplying by 1. So we're multiplying by 2 over 2. That's the same as 1. And that gives me 34 over 48. Once you have a common denominator, Then you can do all sorts of things with fractions, like add them and subtract them. In this case, we can compare them. And you'll see that 34 over 48 is bigger than 33 over 48. Therefore, 17/24 is bigger than 11/16. So my little alligator will eat the 17/24 because that's the bigger one. Okay, and I lied to you when I said we had one more thing to cover. Now we have one more thing to cover. Okay, our last thing to cover is going from mixed fractions to improper fractions. So if I have the mixed fraction of 2 3/4, it means that I have 2 that are completely filled in, and then I got leftover 3/4. And so an improper fraction is, well, I don't want a mixed whole number here. I just want it as a fraction, a number over another number. So our denominator is 4, and the reason why is because each of our parts is broken up into fourths. And then I just count out how many fourths I got here. So here I got 4 plus 4 more, that's 8, plus 3 more is 11. So I have 11 fourths. Now that's the same as 2 3/4. So sometimes if you have to go from a mixed to an improper number, it helps to remember this picture in your head, but you don't want to have to draw this every time. So the shortcut is I figure out, okay, well, my parts, there's fourths. That's what each part is worth. If I have 2 whole parts, then I got to do 2 times 4. That gives me this 8 right here. And then I'm going to add the leftovers, this 3 leftovers. So I do 2 times 4 is 8, plus the 3 leftovers, and that's the 11 fourths. Okay, and conversely, sometimes you'll be given an improper fraction like 11 fourths, and you have to work backwards to get that. So what you do is you figure out, well, how many 4s can I get into 11 without going over? Oh, that's 2, and that gives me the whole number of 2. What am I left over with? Well, 2 times 4 is 8. I'm left over with 3, so that's my numerator, so 2 3/4. Okay, so that's the last thing that we need to cover for part 1 of the 1.6 extension. You're ready to start the big ideas. So choose either the mild or no. Is there only one? Yeah, there's only one. So choose the standard version of 1.6 extension A, and you'll have another 1.6 extension video and assignment tomorrow. All right, good luck, pirates. Ah!